No one in the diner realized their whole world was about to change because a little girl in a blue dress chose the wrong table to stand beside. The late afternoon sky outside was painted gold and orange, sunlight pouring through the big front windows and turning the chrome details of the stools into streaks of fire. Inside, the air smelled of coffee, fried chicken, and warm pie. Families talked in low, lazy voices, the kind of small talk that only happens when everyone believes nothing bad can touch them. At the far end of the counter, 3 bikers sat shoulder to shoulder, black leather vests creaking whenever they moved. Their tattoos crawled over muscled arms like dark stories written in ink. Customers pretended not to stare, but eyes kept flicking toward them, jumping away whenever one of the men shifted or cleared his throat. They looked like trouble. They always did. The leader, a broad man with steel-gray eyes and a salt and pepper beard, stirred his coffee slowly, watching the room in the reflection of the window. His road name, stitched in gold on his vest, read Ghost. Beside him sat Tank, thick-necked and silent, and Ace, younger, with sharp eyes that never seemed to rest. Their patch was heavy with symbols most people didn't understand, but everyone understood the message. Don't mess with us. At the opposite end of the diner counter, a little girl stood on her toes, fingers curled nervously over the edge of the laminate. Her blue dress was slightly wrinkled, her shoes scuffed. Her big brown eyes kept darting from the plate of food in front of her to the door, then back again. She looked like a small bird that had flown into the wrong storm. Her name was Mia. The waitress, a tired woman with kindness buried under hours of double shifts, set down a plate with a burger and fries in front of Mia. "There you go, sweetheart," she said, softly. "You sure you're okay here by yourself? Your mom said she'd just be a minute, right?" Mia swallowed, forcing a brave nod. "Yes, ma'am. She said to wait right here and not talk to strangers." The waitress smiled sadly. "Good advice." She glanced toward the back of the diner where the restrooms were, then toward the window, where the rumble of distant engines still seemed to vibrate in the glass. Something about the way Mia kept glancing at the door tugged at her, but another table called, another order was up, and the moment slipped away like steam off fresh coffee. Ghost noticed. He saw the way Mia's small hand shook when she reached for her fries. He saw the way her shoulders tensed every time someone pushed open the diner door and the bell above it chimed. Tank followed Ghost's gaze and grunted. "Kid looks spooked." Ace snorted softly, probably scared of us. "Most people are." Ghost didn't answer. A shadow passed through his eyes, something old and weary. "That's not fear of us," he murmured. "That's fear of somebody else." Outside, the warm light was starting to dim, clouds rolling in from the west, heavy with the promise of a storm. Thunder growled faintly behind the steady whoosh of passing cars on the highway. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered once, then steadied, casting cool white across the red booths. Mia clenched her jaw and slid off the stool. Her feet hit the floor with a soft thump. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at the door again. Then she took a deep breath, turned on her heel, and began walking down the length of the counter. Straight toward the bikers. Conversations dipped. Forks paused. The waitress saw her and opened her mouth to call her back, but something in the girl's determined stride stopped the words in her throat. Ghost shifted slightly, watching as Mia came to a halt right in front of him, tiny compared to his bulk, her chin tilted upward in stubborn defiance of her own trembling. Up close, the bikers could see the tear tracks drying on her cheeks. Ghost's voice softened without him meaning to. "You lost, little bird?" Mia shook her head quickly, though her eyes were glassy. "No, sir." She stared at the tattoo on his forearm, an intricate design of a winged skull wrapped in flames and chains. Her small fingertip rose, hovering just above the ink, careful not to touch. Her voice came out in a rush, too loud in the suddenly quiet diner. "My mom has a tattoo just like that," she blurted. "And the man who's looking for her said if we tell anyone, he'll—" She cut herself off, lips clamping shut as if she'd revealed too much. Her eyes darted to the front window, to the parking lot beyond, where headlights had just swept across the glass. Ghost's heartbeat kicked hard in his chest. "The man who's what?" he asked, his tone still gentle, but now edged with steel. Mia's hands twisted in the fabric of her dress. "He's coming," she whispered. "He said we can't run anymore. Mom went out the back door to talk to him, but she told me if anything bad happened, I had to find the man with the fire and chains tattoo. She said you'd know what to do." Tank and Ace exchanged a sharp glance. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, as if the storm outside had slipped through the walls and settled over their table. Ghost leaned forward, his eyes locking on Mia's. "What's your mother's name?" Mia opened her mouth to answer, but before she could speak, the bell over the diner door jangled violently. A tall man stepped inside, rain-spattered and furious, his jaw clenched, eyes scanning the room like a hunter searching for prey. He carried his rage like a weapon, and when his stare landed on Mia standing with the bikers, his lips curved into a cold, dangerous smile. Ghost's hand curled slowly into a fist on the table. The little girl's voice broke into a terrified whisper. "That's him." The moment the door slammed open, every sound in the diner died at once. It was as if the storm outside had crawled inside, dragging thunder in behind it. Mia's breath caught in her chest, her small hand gripping the edge of Ghost's vest as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. The man in the doorway stood tall, shoulders hunched with rage, wet hair slicked against his forehead from the growing rain. His eyes were cold, sharp and mean, the kind of eyes that searched for weakness and enjoyed finding it. The fluorescent lights above carved harsh shadows across his face, making him look even more dangerous. His boots hit the floor with heavy thuds as he stepped forward. "Mia," he growled, voice low and venomous. "You think you can hide in here?" The girl flinched violently. Ghost didn't miss it. Neither did Tank or Ace. Every biker at that table went still, not with fear, but with the focused stillness of men who had seen danger and knew exactly how to meet it. Ghost rose from the booth slowly, towering over the man without needing to say a word. Thunder echoed outside, rattling the window panes. Somewhere in the kitchen, a pot clanged to the floor as a cook froze mid-step, eyes wide. The man sneered at Ghost. "You bikers think you own every place you walk into. Move, the girl belongs to me." Mia's voice cracked. "No, I don't." Her fear hit Ghost like a blow. He stepped forward, his voice calm, but carrying an unmistakable warning. "You should rethink the way you just said that." Tank stood next, crossing his arms, tattoos rippling under the harsh diner lights. Ace slid out silently, positioning himself just behind Mia, making sure she couldn't be grabbed. The man hesitated for the first time, eyes flicking between the three leather-clad giants, but his arrogance burned hotter than his fear. "Her mother owes me," he snapped, "and kids don't run from me." Neither do women. You bikers need to mind your own business. Ghost's jaw tightened. That little girl walked up to me on her own. That makes her my business. Mia tugged Ghost's vest, her voice trembling. He hurt my mom. He said if she didn't come with him, he'd... Quiet! The man barked, taking a step forward. He didn't take another. Ghost's hand shot out, palm flat, pushing the man back just far enough to make a point, but gently enough to show restraint. The diner gasped collectively. Don't yell at her, Ghost said, voice dropping to a dangerous calm that made the hairs on everyone's arms rise. The man's face twisted. You have no idea who I am. Ghost's answer was immediate. I don't care. Rain hammered hard against the windows now, lightning flashing across the sky in a bright electric burst. The glow lit the room for half a second, just long enough for Ghost to see a nasty bruise on Mia's tiny shoulder, purple and yellow beneath the strap of her dress. A bruise from fingers far too large to belong to a child. Ghost's eyes iced over. Tank muttered low. He put hands on the kid. Ace's fists curled. Not smart. The man noticed the shift in their expressions and laughed, though the sound was thin and forced. I'm taking her and her mother, and unless one of you wants a lawsuit, you better... A voice cut him off. It was the waitress, Linda, trembling, but brave. Sir, please leave. We're calling the police. No one calls anyone, he snarled. He lunged, not at Ghost, not at Tank, not at Ace. He lunged at Mia. She screamed, but he never touched her. Ghost moved faster than anyone in the room expected, faster than a man his age and size had any right to. He grabbed the man's wrist mid-air, twisting it behind his back with a single fluid motion. The man cried out as Ghost slammed his other hand flat onto the counter, pinning him effortlessly. You made the biggest mistake of your life, Ghost growled into his ear, voice low and lethal. The entire diner watched, breath held tight, as the man squirmed in Ghost's grip. The storm outside raged louder, wind whipping water against the glass. Mia pressed herself against Ace, wide-eyed but safe. Ghost leaned down, whispering something too soft for the rest of the room to hear. Whatever it was drained the color from the man's face. His body sagged. But then... the back door burst open. Mia's mother stumbled into the diner, soaked from the rain, hair plastered to her face, a small cut bleeding above her brow. She gasped when she saw Ghost, and Ghost froze when she stepped into the light. Mia! She cried, rushing forward. Baby, are you okay? Mia sobbed and nodded, but her mother wasn't looking at her. Her eyes were locked on Ghost, with shock, recognition, and something like fear. Ghost's expression shifted. Mia's mom? He whispered. Is that... But the next moment shattered everything, because Mia's mother said the last thing anyone expected. Ghost, you need to let him go. You don't understand. He's not just dangerous. He's connected. She swallowed hard, voice trembling. And if he finds out I talk to you, he won't stop. Ghost stared at her, understanding dawning slowly. Then Mia's mother whispered, He's looking for you too. Everyone in the diner froze as Mia's mother stood trembling in the doorway, rainwater dripping from her hair and clothes, her breaths sharp and uneven. The storm outside roared so loudly it felt as if lightning had struck right behind her. But the noise inside the diner died completely. Her eyes, wide, terrified, and shining with something far heavier than fear, were locked on Ghost. Mia's mom, Ghost whispered, his grip loosening on the man pinned against the counter. Why? Would he be looking for me? Mia's mother swallowed hard, her voice trembling. Because you don't know who he really works for. The man smirked through clenched teeth, despite Ghost's hold. Ghost shoved him once more against the counter to silence him, but the damage was already done. Because Mia's mother's fear wasn't for herself. It was for all of them. Thunder cracked violently overhead. Tank muttered, "Something's wrong. Real wrong." Ace moved Mia behind him protectively, eyes narrowing as he watched the soaked woman stumble forward. Mia broke free and ran into her mother's arms. "Mom, I was so scared." Her mother squeezed her tightly, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. "I know, baby. I know." Ghost's voice softened, but his eyes remained sharp. "Talk to me. Why is he hunting you? Why me?" Mia's mother, Elena, lifted her gaze slowly. Recognition flickered, pain flickered, and then memories. "Because," she whispered, "I used to ride with your old crew." The shock hit Ghost, Tank, and Ace in a single silent explosion. Ghost released the man instantly. "You were a rider?" Tank breathed. Elena nodded. "Years ago, before Mia, before I tried to escape that life." The man laughed bitterly. "Escape? You think you can outrun them?" Ghost's expression darkened. "Who? Who's after her?" Elena hesitated, but only for a moment. Then she said the name that made Ghost's entire body go cold. Razor Malik. Tank cursed under his breath. Ace went pale. Ghost's hands curled into fists. Razor Malik, a violent ex-member, a man Ghost had personally kicked out years ago, a man known for crossing lines even bikers refused to cross. The kind of man who didn't let go of grudges. Ghost turned to the man he had pinned. "You work for Razor?" The man grinned despite the pain. "He sends his regards." Ghost slammed him against the counter again. "Why is he after Elena?" Elena's voice cracked. "Because Razor thinks I know where you've been hiding all these years. He thinks I stayed in contact with you." Ghost stared at her, stunned. "We haven't spoken in more than a decade." "I know that," Elena said, voice breaking. "But Razor doesn't care. He believes you owe him something, and he wants leverage." Her eyes dropped to Mia clinging to her leg. "He wants my daughter." Every biker at the table straightened with the same slow, terrifying determination. Ghost stepped closer, his voice low. "He will never touch that child." The man scoffed. "Razor's not coming alone. You can't protect her from him." Ghost's jaw flexed. "Watch me!" The lights flickered overhead as the storm intensified, casting jagged shadows across the diner. A deep rumble of thunder shook the windows. Outside, the parking lot seemed to vanish into sheets of rain. Linda, the waitress, whispered shakily, "Should we call the police?" Elena shook her head violently. "No. Razor has people everywhere. If he knows Ghost is here..." She cut herself off, eyes widening as she looked out the window. Ghost followed her gaze. Headlights. Not one set. Not 2, 5, no, 6. All rolling slowly into the lot through the storm. Tank swore. "That's not good." Ace stepped back from the window, pushing Mia gently into Elena's arms. "We need to get them out of here." Ghost stared at the headlights growing brighter through the downpour, approaching like predators circling prey. His voice was a quiet, deadly promise. "They're not here for Elena." Elena's head snapped toward him. What do you mean?" "They're here," Ghost said, eyes burning with something dark and familiar. "Because Razor finally found me." The headlights shut off simultaneously. The diner lights flickered again. Ghost exhaled slowly, then turned to the others. "Get Elena and Mia into the back room. Now." Tank grabbed the struggling man by the collar and dragged him aside. Ace moved to secure the doors. Rain pounded harder, thunder roaring. Ghost placed a steady hand on Elena's shoulder. "I'm not letting him take your daughter, or you." Elena's eyes glistened. "Ghost, you can't face him alone." Ghost's voice was steel. "I wasn't planning to." The bell above the diner door jingled. The door creaked open. A tall, shadowy figure stepped inside, and the storm behind him swallowed the last of the light. The door creaked open with a slow, deliberate groan, letting in a blast of cold storm air that sent napkins fluttering off tables. The lights flickered again, humming uneasily above the diners who were now frozen in absolute silence. Every pair of eyes locked on the tall silhouette standing in the doorway, broad shoulders, soaked black jacket, boots heavy with mud from the storm. For a terrifying heartbeat, no one breathed. Mia whimpered softly against her mother's leg, her tiny fingers trembling. Elena held her close, her own heartbeat thundering louder than the storm outside. Ghost took a single step forward, placing himself directly in front of them. Tank and Ace spread out slowly, forming a protective barrier. The figure stepped fully into the light. It wasn't Razor. But the man wasn't a friend either. He had a jagged scar slicing down his cheek, a shaved head glistening with rain, and a leather vest marked with symbols no diner patron recognized. But Ghost did. So did Tank. So did Ace. The stranger smirked. "Evening, Ghost. Long time." Ghost's eyes hardened. "Viper." Tank cursed under his breath. Razor sent his second in command. Viper's cold gaze swept the diner, lingering on Elena and Mia for just a second too long. "You picked a cozy little hideout," he said casually. "Warm lights, good food. Shame it's about to get messy." Ace shifted his weight. "What do you want?" Viper shrugged. "Orders." Ghost didn't blink. "Razor wants me." Viper smiled, revealing a row of uneven teeth. "And the girl? Razor wants her too. Says she's valuable." Elena nearly collapsed. Mia clutched Ghost's vest and whispered, "Please don't let them take me." Ghost's voice was a low growl. "No one lays a hand on her." Viper raised a brow. "Ghost, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the Razor way." The storm raged harder outside, wind slamming sheets of rain against the glass. The diner lights buzzed and dimmed, plunging the room into a haunting half-shadow. Linda, shaking behind the counter, reached for the phone. Viper's eyes cut sharply toward her. "Touch that phone and you lose a finger," he warned. Ghost snapped, "Nobody threatens civilians in my presence." Viper's smile thinned. "Razor said you might have forgotten how things work now that you're playing family guardian. So let me remind you." He whistled once, shrill and sharp. Outside, shapes moved through the rain. 5 men, 6, 7, all wearing the same insignia as Viper. Tank exhaled. "Ghost, there's too many." Ghost kept his voice calm. "We've dealt with worse." Viper clicked his tongue. "Come on, old friend. This isn't a fight. It's a delivery. I take the girl. You come with me. Razor gets what he wants, and this little diner gets to stay in one piece." Mia's breath hitched. Elena clung to her, tears gathering. Ghost stepped forward, blocking their view completely. "You're not taking the child." Viper's eyes flashed with something cold. "Then Razor will burn this place down to get her." Lightning ripped across the sky, thunder cracking so violently the windows trembled. The man Ghost had pinned earlier, Razor's goon, laughed. "Told you, you're outnumbered." Ghost didn't look at him. "Tank, Ace, get Elena and Mia to the storeroom." Elena shook her head fiercely. "No, if you fight them." Ghost met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw something vulnerable beneath the steel. I don't want to fight, but I will never let him take your daughter. Viper sighed dramatically. Ghost, you're making this emotional. Razor doesn't like emotional. Ace grabbed Elena's arm gently. We'll keep her safe. Go. Elena hesitated, then nodded, pulling Mia behind the counter toward the back hallway. Tank moved to follow. That's when Viper snapped his fingers. The men outside started moving, fast. Time's up, Viper said. Bring the girl. Two of Razor's men pushed into the diner, water dripping off their jackets as they reached for the hallway path. The Ghost stepped directly into their way. Viper rolled his shoulders. Let's see what the legend of Ghost really looks like. Ghost didn't move, didn't speak. He simply stood there, the storm washing shadows across his eyes, his presence filling the entire diner with a silent, unstoppable force. Viper grinned. Get him! The two men lunged. Ghost grabbed the first by the collar and drove him into a booth with such force the table snapped. The second swung wildly, but Ghost ducked and slammed his fist into the man's ribs, sending him crashing into the counter. The diners screamed and scrambled under tables. Viper didn't flinch. He watched, amused. Still fast, he muttered, but not fast enough. He reached behind his vest, pulled out a switchblade. The lights flickered violently. Ace yelled, Ghost! Ghost turned just as Viper lunged at him, blade flashing, but he wasn't aiming for Ghost. He was aiming past him, toward the hallway, toward Mia. Ghost roared and dove forward, but the blade was already flying through the air, thrown with lethal precision. Elena screamed. Mia gasped. The knife spun through the dim light, heading straight for the little girl. The knife cut through the air like a streak of lightning, fast, silent, deadly. Mia's scream tore through the diner as she froze in the hallway, too terrified to move. Elena lunged, trying to shield her daughter, but she was too far. Mere inches too far. The entire room seemed to slow, lights flickering, thunder rolling in heavy waves behind the glass. Ghost launched himself forward with every ounce of power still left in his body. His hand caught the knife mid-flight, not by the handle, by the blade. Blood burst instantly across his palm. The knife stopped inches from Mia's face. A collective gasp ripped through the diner. Even Viper's smirk faltered for a heartbeat. Ghost's breath came out sharp, his jaw clenching as the blade cut deeper into his skin. But he didn't make a sound. Instead, he flicked his wrist and sent the knife clattering harmlessly across the floor. Mia's knees buckled. Elena pulled her into a tight embrace, shaking with helpless gratitude. Ghost, oh my God. But Ghost didn't turn around. His eyes were locked on Viper. And those eyes were no longer calm. They were wildfire. Viper's smirk slowly returned. Still got quick hands. Razor will be impressed. Ace moved to Ghost's side, gripping a chair leg like a makeshift weapon. He's done talking, Ace warned. Back off. Tank positioned himself between the hallway and the door, ready to take the next blow. Nobody touches the kid, he growled. But Viper only laughed, loud and cruel. You think this ends because you caught one knife? Ghost Razor has a dozen more men waiting outside. We're not walking away. Edamaris o I dinno. Flash of lightning lit the diner with white fire. Outside, through the rain-blurred windows, more figures appeared. Shadows pacing, watching, waiting. It felt hopeless. Until a new sound cut through the storm. The distant rumble of engines. But not Razor's. Familiar. Powerful. Deep. Ghost's eyes widened. Tank's breath hitched. Ace straightened slowly. No way, Ace whispered. Viper's smirk twitched. Who the hell? Headlights burst through the storm, bright and blinding. 3 massive motorcycles rolled into the parking lot, like thunder given shape. Engines growled, chrome gleaming wet under the lightning. Then the riders stepped off their bikes. Leather vests, patches, insignias. Ghost hadn't seen in years. The Desert Riders. Ghost's old crew. His brothers. Viper froze, color draining from his face. That's impossible. Razor said they were gone. Ghost tilted his head just slightly. You really shouldn't believe everything Razor tells you. The diner erupted in whispers as 3 men stepped into the doorway. Broad shoulders, grim expressions, heavy boots hitting the floor like drum beats. The one in front had a long braid and cold eyes. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. Ghost called. We answered. Ghost had not called them, but Elena had. Through shaking hands and quiet desperation, she had messaged the one number she still remembered from her past. A number she never thought she would use again. Viper stumbled backward. This wasn't part of the plan. Tank grinned darkly. Plans change. Ace cracked his knuckles. Showtime. The Desert Riders spread out across the diner like a wall of iron. Viper's men, who had been closing in through the storm, stopped abruptly outside, hesitating, unsure. Viper hissed, "Stand your ground. Razor will skin you alive if you run." But the men didn't move. Not forward, not backward, trapped between fear of Razor and fear of the riders. Ghost stepped forward, bloody hand dripping onto the tile. This ends now. Leave. Tell Razor if he wants a fight, he can come himself. Viper's jaw flexed. We don't leave without the girl. The braid-haired rider cracked his neck. Then you're not leaving at all. Viper's eyes darted, his bravado collapsing under real danger. He stumbled toward the door, shouting at his men. Fall back! We regroup! Move! But before he could step outside, a figure stepped into the doorway, tall, hard-eyed, rain rolling off his jacket like smoke. Viper froze. Every biker in the diner tensed. Mia whimpered and buried her face into Elena's chest. 'Cause the man in the doorway, the one Viper feared more than anyone, was Razor Malik himself. He smiled slowly. Miss me, Ghost? The doorway framed him like a shadow carved out of the storm. Razor Malik, tall and predatory, lightning flashing behind him as if the sky itself recoiled from his presence. His dark eyes swept across the diner with slow, poisonous amusement. Every breath in the room stilled. Every frightened heart pounded harder. Ghost didn't blink. Neither did Razor, 2 men with history carved deep into their bones. Brothers once, enemies now. Razor stepped inside, boots echoing through the silent diner. You've caused me a lot of trouble tonight, he said, calmly, wiping rain from his brow. You always did know how to stand in my way. Ghost stepped forward, voice steady despite the blood dripping from his hand. You're not touching the girl. Razor smirked. The girl is leverage. Her mother took something from me. His gaze slid to Elena, shrinking against the wall behind the Desert Riders. She vanished when I needed her, and people who vanish owe debts. Ghost clenched his jaw. She owes you nothing. Razor chuckled softly. Spoken like a man who doesn't know the whole story. Elena flinched. Razor saw it and smiled wider. Tell him, sweetheart. Tell him why I want your daughter. Ghost's breath stopped. Elena? Elena's voice came out cracked and low. Ghost, Razor thinks Mia is... Razor finished the sentence for her. Your daughter. The room exploded with shock. Ghost froze. Tank's mouth fell open. Ace whispered, "No way." Even the desert rider stiffened. Elena shook her head fiercely, tears spilling. "It's not true, Ghost. Razor convinced himself of it. He thinks if he has Mia, you'll come crawling back to the life you left." Ghost stared at Elena. Words stolen. "Elena, you should have told me." Elena sobbed. "I couldn't drag you back into the danger. I couldn't do that to you." Ghost looked at Mia, small, trembling, staring at him with terrified eyes, and something inside him broke open. Something he had buried for years. Razor took advantage of the moment, stepping closer, voice cold. "So here's my offer. You—" He pointed at Ghost. "Come with me. Return to the riders. Return to your rightful place. And the girl stays unharmed." Ghost's answer was instant. "No." Razor blinked. "No? No," Ghost repeated, stepping between Razor and the hallway. "I left that life for a reason, and I'm not letting you build your empire on fear. Not on a child." Razor's jaw twitched. "Then you've chosen war." He swung, fast, brutal. A punch meant to break ribs. Ghost blocked it with his wounded hand, blood flying, pain burning through his arm, but he didn't fall. He threw Razor backward into a booth, the entire diner shaking from the impact. Razor roared and charged again. Tank joined the fight, grabbing one of Razor's men as he tried to intervene, slamming him into the floor. Ace ducked a swing and countered with a hard elbow to the jaw. The desert riders surged forward, forming a wall that prevented Razor's men from swarming Ghost. Lightning flashed, thunder cracked, tables shattered, diners crawled to safety. Razor fought like an animal cornered, violent, unpredictable, desperate. Ghost fought like a man with something to protect for the first time in years. Mia. Every time Razor lunged for her, Ghost blocked him. Every time Razor tried to reach Elena, Tank or Ace cut him off. Finally, Razor grabbed a broken chair leg and swung at Ghost's head. Ghost ducked, caught Razor's wrist, twisted hard, and drove him into the counter so violently the plates rattled. Razor gasped for breath. Ghost pinned him there, breathing heavy, rain-soaked and bleeding, but unbroken. "This ends now," Ghost growled. Razor spat blood. "You can't stop me. There will always be men like me." Ghost leaned closer, voice low enough only Razor heard. "Maybe, but not here. Not tonight." Razor laughed weakly. "You won't kill me?" Ghost shook his head. "I don't have to." Tank and Ace dragged Razor's remaining men outside, dropping them beside their bikes like discarded trash. The desert riders blocked every exit. Elena stepped forward, shaking but resolute. "Razor, I'm not afraid of you anymore." Razor's eyes flicked to her, and for the first time there was fear. Ghost released him. Razor collapsed to the floor. Sirens wailed in the distance. Linda, still shaking behind the counter, whispered, "I called the police. I couldn't watch anymore." Razor growled, trying to rise, but Ghost stepped on his wrist firmly, not cruelly, just final. "You're done," Ghost said. Police stormed the diner moments later. Razor and his men were cuffed and dragged out into the storm. Razor's glare burned with rage, but his power was gone, shattered in front of everyone he tried to terrify. As the doors closed behind the officers, a heavy quiet filled the diner. Elena stepped closer to Ghost. His hands shook. Not from pain, but from everything he had nearly lost, without ever knowing he wanted it. "Ghost," she whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." He looked at Mia, still clinging to her mother. I don't know if she's mine, he said softly. But I know this. Razor will never threaten her again. Elena's tears fell freely. Thank you. Ghost knelt down. Mia peeked out from behind her mother. He smiled gently. You were very brave tonight. Mia whispered, Are you going to disappear like before? Ghost shook his head. No, little bird, not anymore. Tank slapped Ghost's shoulder. Looks like you've got a family to protect. Ace grinned. Guess retirement didn't suit you. Ghost looked at Elena, then at Mia, then at, the storm clearing outside. The first hint of sunrise broke through the clouds. A new beginning, a second chance. Ghost exhaled deeply. The phoenix rises from the ashes, he murmured. Elena's breath caught. And this time, Ghost added, standing tall, it stays risen. Mia slipped her tiny hand into his, and Ghost, warrior, leader, legend, closed his around hers, gentle and sure.